When is a war not a war, or at least not quite? At the risk of tempting fate, always a necessary qualifier to any discussion of the Middle East, we may have seen an answer to that question earlier this week in the latest exchanges between Israel and the Lebanese militia Hezbollah. The facts as we understand them are broadly these. Early on Sunday morning, Israel launched a major air operation against Hezbollah, sending perhaps 100 fighter jets to hit Hezbollah rocket launcher sites across southern Lebanon.
A short while ago, the IDF identified Hezbollah terrorist organization preparing to fire missiles, rockets towards Israeli territory.
The intention, according to Israel, was to preempt an anticipated barrage from Hezbollah's long-threatened retaliation for Israel's assassination last month in Beirut of senior Hezbollah military commander Fuad Shukr. About an hour after the Israeli raids, the barrage, or a possibly reduced version of the barrage, came anyway. Hezbollah launched around 300 rockets and drones at Israel. This was very much not the first exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah since Hamas attacked Israel last October 7th, but it was the biggest. Nevertheless, if we take at face value the battle damage assessments offered by both sides, remarkably little damage was done. Israel says that no Hezbollah missile struck what Hezbollah claimed was their primary targets: the Glilot military base near Tel Aviv, home to the Israel Defense Forces Unit 8200, an intelligence unit, and the Ein Shmer Air Force Base near Hadera. Israel did announce the death of one Navy sailor aboard a patrol boat and injuries to two others, caused by shrapnel from one of Israel's own Iron Dome air defense missiles, which struck a Hezbollah drone near the craft. A few injuries were reported elsewhere. Hezbollah says that Israel's claims to have wiped out thousands of rocket launchers were overblown, admitting the loss of only a few dozen such contraptions and the deaths of 4 fighters. It is probably as well at this point to acknowledge one of the immutable laws of any active conflict. All parties to it are, to some extent or another, lying, denying, occluding, or deflecting. There is no reason why they wouldn't. Information is a weapon, and a weapon with considerable power to befuddle one's opponents and rally one's allies. All reports from both sides of Israel's operations on the West Bank this week should also be viewed through this filter. But in the specific instance of the weekend's back and forth, we can probably go ahead and assume that while some details may have been fudged, there is a broadish representation of reality in what both sides have said about these exchanges. Israel, for example, could not easily style out a direct hit by one of Hezbollah's Katyusha rockets on a military installation which is, and I checked, a 20-minute walk from the nearest McDonald's. So it all appears to amount to a great deal of military effort and expense for not much result in both directions. This is, of course, good news in both directions. Since October 7th last year, more than enough people have been killed, injured, displaced, bereaved and/or traumatized in Israel, Gaza, the West Bank and Lebanon. If a greater proportion of recent military actions had been this variety of largely consequence-free pyrotechnics, the Middle East would be a happier place. If it seems counterintuitive that such major assaults could do so little harm, it may seem downright inexplicable that all concerned should sound pretty satisfied with the result. Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah seemed happy to call it a draw, saying in effect that he believed that the Fuad Shukr account was now settled and that Lebanon's people could, quote, take a breath and relax. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu huffed and puffed somewhat, but as of this recording, that's about it. Interestingly, amid the hurly-burly of Israeli politics, he currently looks like something of a moderate, fielding criticism from right and left for not hitting Hezbollah hard enough. So what, the reasonable listener may well be wondering, was the point of all that? Well, weird though it sounds and grotesque though it may be, war often has a theatrical aspect. Sometimes an action is undertaken not to kill or destroy, merely to demonstrate that you are able and willing to do so if further provoked. An example from very recent history. Back in April, Iran launched a colossal wave of assorted projectiles at Israel in retaliation for an Israeli strike on Iran's diplomatic compound in Damascus. Almost all of Iran's airborne armada was intercepted by Israel and its allies, as Iran surely knew it would be. Iran felt that it had to be seen to do something, but did not want to do anything that might overly antagonize a foe which, rightly or wrongly, it is what it is, has always observed a doctrine of massive retaliation to meaningful threat. Hezbollah similarly does not want an all-out war with Israel, on the basis that it would do Hezbollah no imaginable good. There are several important differences between Hezbollah and Hamas, but the most crucial is that Hezbollah are not crazy. Nasrallah and his deputy, Naim Qassem, with whom this correspondent spent an agreeable enough afternoon in Beirut back in 2001, have not lasted and prospered this long by not knowing when to stop pushing their luck. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.